whatever you do, don't quit. You can get knocked down, but you got to get up off the mat. Life is a battle, man. It's tough. And we're going to get knocked down sometimes and get hurt and bleed, but we have to get up and keep pressing forward. And that comes from having a purpose. Why am I here? What is my purpose? And every day you get a chance to actualize that purpose.
Hey everyone, this is Rod Cade and welcome to this week's episode of Rocket Motivation. This week's guest grew up right here in Mobile, Alabama. When he was 3 years old, he lost his father, leaving his mother to raise him and his 6 siblings. He's going to talk about navigating through his childhood and adolescence to stay on the right path. He received his degree in chemistry from Alabama State University. He received his Ph.D. in organic chemistry from UNC Chapel Hill and is the head of the Department of Chemistry at Tuskegee University. He's a father, a pastor, professor, and an incredible person.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Reverend Dr. Albert Russell, welcome to Rocket Motivation.
And thank you for the invitation. I'm humbled by it, and I'm humbled to be here, so I appreciate it.
All right, well, we're glad to have you. Well, Dr. Russell, let's do this. First, kind of tell us where you are now in your life, your family, your job, what you do now.
Yes, sir. So right now, I am a professor at Tuskegee University. I teach organic chemistry. I'm also the department chair at Tuskegee University for the Department of Chemistry. I am the pastor of Grace Community Church in Millbrook, Alabama. And I am also a full-time dad. I just recently got remarried, so I'm also a full-time husband and stepdad. So I wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, you're a little busy. And we're going to circle back about your family life in just a bit. But let's go back now. Let's talk about growing up in Mobile. So your dad passes away when you were 3 years old, and I believe it was on your birthday. So first of all, why don't you tell your listeners something about your dad, kind of humanize him, because I think that's an important part of the story.
Yes, sir. My dad was a career military Navyman. He retired from the Navy as an E-7 radar man. He was a chief in the Navy. He grew up in Mobile because of his military service. My family moved around. They lived in Jacksonville. They lived in Brunswick, Georgia. And I think the final station before he retired was in Washington, D.C., which is where I was born before we moved to Mobile. So yeah, my dad had several brothers. I have uncles who are still in Mobile, and he was a great guy. He had a really distinguished military career, as far as I can tell, and from the stories that my mom has told me. He had a very distinguished career. Yeah, he was just a really great guy, man. And he passed away way too soon. He actually passed away after retiring from the Navy. He became a merchant marine. So when he got in with the Seamen's Union, he would ride the ship and go out to sea. And he passed away on one of those ships, falling overboard and drowning. And that's how he died.
So your dad passes away when you're 3 years old. You have 6 other siblings. And so
Yes,
your
sir.
mom is now raising all of you here in Mobile. Kind of take us through what that was like, as a child, and then through your teenage years. Kind of tell us how you navigated through, to stay on the right path.
Yes, sir. Well, my childhood, it wasn't bad. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of things, but I had a good childhood. My mom did the best she could. She ruled with an iron fist, as she had to keep 7 kids ranging in age from a year old up through the teenage years, because my brothers and sisters are much older than I am. I'm the second to the baby. My younger brother is a year and a half younger than I am. And so she ruled with an iron fist. But when you get, school was great. I did well in school, elementary school, middle school. But when you get to that middle school, high school stage, things start changing. And some of my friends around me started dabbling in drugs. Some of them started dabbling in crime. As a matter of fact, my best friend to this day, started using crack when he was 13 years old. Crack at 13. And so growing up around that and in that environment and seeing people, strung out on drugs as teenagers, being offered cocaine and, weed and all these different things, I had to start making decisions. Was I going to follow suit and follow the crowd, or was I going to be my own man? And I thank God that I made the decision most of the time, 99% of the time, to be my own man and not follow just because somebody says, hey, try this or hey, do this. I've made some bad decisions as well, made some decisions that I regret. But I was actually telling my daughter last night, as a matter of fact, how many of my friends I can count who are still in prison, or how many who are dead right now, or how many who are still on drugs right now. I mean, it was just a very different, especially in the 80s with, crack booming and it becoming like, your friends start selling crack and you're looking at them with new shoes and pocketfuls of money. And it's like, man, do I want that or do I need to find something else? So I tried to stay legit as much as possible because at the same time you're seeing that money, you're also seeing guys getting decades in prison. And I know guys firsthand that I grew up with or that who were a little older than I was that did 20 years, 30 years, just got out of prison from the 80s. And it's 2022. So, when you see that, you have to balance it and, it's risk reward. And I'm like, I'm not willing to take the risk because the reward is not enough for me to spend decades of my life behind bars.
Well, we'll talk about the importance of your mother keeping you kind of well grounded and on the right path.
Yes, sir, man. My mom was the beacon of light in that darkness, man. She, like I said, she ruled with an iron fist. She laid down discipline when she had to. And after so much discipline, you start to get the picture like maybe I need to tighten up. But she was a huge influence in my life because I always thought about what would my mom think if I got caught selling drugs? What would she think if I was in the back of a squad car and she had to come bail me out? What would she think if I shot this guy that, started a fight with me? Like that always went through my mind. What would my mom think? And so I kind of used her in a sense that I always wanted to make her proud. And so I never wanted to do anything to disgrace her name or our family name, even though, like I said, I made some decisions that I'm not proud of. But overall, I always looked to my mom and said, I don't want to put any more on her than she already has on her. And I don't want to break her heart. And I always want to do whatever I do, I want to make her proud. And so that's what made me really dig in to my schoolwork and made me look for other ways. I started cutting hair and I got really good at that. So that's how I made my money. And I got acquainted with everybody, every hustler, everybody who sold drugs, everybody, whatever. They came to get a haircut. And that was as close as I got to that life because I didn't really need that drama. And I didn't want to bring that drama home to my mom either. So me cutting hair, making my own money. I had a job. I started working at Greer's up on Broad Street, making my own money. And my mom, in the back of my mind, I always thought, what is she going to think if I do this? She's going to be so mad. She's going to be so hurt. She's going to be so disappointed. So she was a great guide and she's a great mom. I love her to pieces and she'll be 80 next month.
Well, and I tell you, why don't we do this? I know she's still alive and in Mobile. What's her name? Let's give her a shout out.
Her name is Bernice Russell, still in the same house down the bay on Marine Street. And Bernice Russell is her name. And she did a fantastic job with very minimal resources, but she made it happen every single day, every day. We never went hungry. The lights were always on. The water was always running.
And Dr. Russell, kind of tell us, about your education. I know you go to Alabama State University and you get your degree in chemistry, and then you take it up a notch to go. You go to UNC Chapel Hill and get your Ph.D. in organic chemistry. Tell us a little bit about that, and then how you got into to be a professor at Tuskegee.
Yes, sir. Well, as a young guy in high school, I made good grades. I always did my work, but I didn't have a plan. I had no designs on going to college at all. I was going to stay working at Greer's. The manager there wanted to move me up and make me a manager, so I saw that as a great opportunity. But I had an older sister named Terry, who after graduation, my mom sent me home with her to Huntsville to stay with her for the summer, to keep me out of trouble. And then we were coming back to Mobile, and she took me to Alabama State's campus, and I met the then vice president for academic affairs. His name was Roosevelt Steptoe. Met him, and he gave me a scholarship on the spot. And I was there, and I did my thing. And every semester, I would bring him my report card to show him that he took a wise gamble on me, because he was looking at me up and down like, I had my baggy shorts on, my Jordans, my gold chains, and he was like, I don't know. And I told him, I was like, if you just give me this opportunity, I'll prove to you that I'm worthy of this opportunity. So got into college and came in studying engineering and would have had to transfer to Auburn, but I didn't want to do that. So I was taking chemistry and tutoring in chemistry and math. And my chemistry professor at the time talked me into changing my major. And that's what I did. And I stuck with it and ended up graduating at the top of my class in 1998 with a degree, with a bachelor's in chemistry.
Right.
And then that left there and went to Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Right. And I know you're at Tuskegee and you took that job shortly after graduating from Carolina, after you got your Ph.D. Did you always know you wanted to teach kids?
I did not. I wanted to do what all of my friends were doing in grad school. I wanted to get the big job in a pharmaceutical company, be a division director, and make a lot of money and move somewhere on the East Coast. But after my fourth year, we had to give a seminar on our fourth year on a given topic. And after that, one of the big names in the chemistry department at Carolina, his name was Maurice Brookhart. He came up to me and he said, "You make a heck of a teacher." And that's when I started thinking about teaching. I guess it was in me already because every time I studied with my classmates, I'd end up leading the study session. I'm the one on the whiteboard explaining everything. And I think it was just in me, but I didn't recognize it. And so it took somebody else seeing that and saying, "Hey man, you'd be really good at this." And that's what made me want to become a professor.
And you're teaching these college students now. When you're teaching this new generation of chemistry students, what does it do for you?
It brings me a great sense of gratification and a lot of joy, for a few reasons. But the main reason is, having gone to an HBCU and having gone to a PWI like Carolina, and then coming back to an HBCU, I get to impart all this wisdom that I picked up. And I get to give them all of these tools that I picked up to help them navigate the same world, but at a little bit of an advantage. And it's just amazing to watch them matriculate and to see them come back after they've graduated and started working or going to grad school, to see them come back and say thank you. My heart is like overflowing every time that happens. Right. Because I really believe that that's why God put me here, just to make a difference in the lives of, young people, students at Tuskegee or anywhere.
Dr. Russell, let's talk about your wife, the mother of your two kids. I know you lost your father early on, and then I know you lost your wife. Kind of talk about her and talk about what happened, and then also talk about how you've dealt with her passing and kind of how you keep moving on.
I met my wife at Alabama State, my late wife. Her name was Danielle, and we got married in 2000. She was in medical school at Emory while I was in grad school. So we, did the long distance relationship thing, got married. We eventually had two kids, my daughter Genesis and my son Donovan. When we moved to Alabama in 2005, that's when I started at Tuskegee. She was in the Air Force. So she did her time at Maxwell, got out, started her own practice. And then in 2012, she actually was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, which is a very difficult to treat, linked to her time in Iraq because she is an Iraqi war veteran. And so she passed away in 2017 from that illness that she was diagnosed with in 2012. And it was devastating. We had been together for 20 years. We were married for 16, going on 17, and we had dated for 3 years prior to that. So it was very devastating to our family, man. And we got two kids. At the time, my son was 13 and my daughter was 10 and my son was 13. They're 3 years apart. Yeah, it was devastating. And the way we moved forward was to, number one, just thinking about, not being stuck in the past. We understand that what was done is done and you can't go back and fix it. And we mourned and we continue to, celebrate her life. But at the same time, we realized that the world is going to keep moving. So if you get stuck in that hole, the world is not going to stop. The bills are not going to stop. The drama is not going to stop. So we just made a decision to continue moving forward, and we deal with our sad times and our periods when they come. I took to writing and wrote 3 books as a therapeutic method for dealing with that loss. And, it's just one of those things, man, where you just have to make a decision that you're not going to wallow in despair, even though you could, and everybody would understand. I just made the decision not to do that because like I said, the world is going to keep moving.
How do you do it all? You're a professor, you're head of the Department of Chemistry, you're a pastor, which we really haven't talked that much about. You're a father raising two teenage kids. How do you do it all?
Well, I can't take credit for it. I give God glory for blessing us with the ability to move forward and to just have a different mindset about life, and thank him for his grace. But it's really a very delicate balancing act, because as you can imagine, being in leadership, both in the church and on my job, you have people pulling on you all the time. And then to top that off, you have to take care of your family who also has needs. So it's a very delicate balancing act, man. And you just have to know when to shift the balance and put more time in with family, know when to tell people at work, I can't do this, know when to tell people in the church, hey, I got to call you back, or I'll have to talk to you tomorrow, because at the end of the day, my family is my first ministry. So if that falls apart, then that's not going to speak well about me and how I'm being a steward over the family that God has gifted me with. It's a balancing act, man, and it's not easy. It's very difficult sometimes, and it's overwhelming sometimes, but I just put it in God's hands, and, he can do more with it than I can. So, I mean, that's just the only way, is to just give it to him, and whatever the strength that he blesses me with, and the wisdom and the ability, I just apply that every single day, day in, day out. It's not easy.
What advice would you give to kids and teenagers, say they're growing up in a tough environment like you were?
Yes, sir.
What advice would you give to them?
My first word of advice would be to be your own person. Don't be a follower, because, being a follower means that you're susceptible to any whim that somebody comes along and says, hey, let's do this. You have to be rational and be a thinker and weigh out the consequences like that. But if I do this, what's going to happen? So don't be a follower. Be your own person. Make your own decisions, and be willing to live with the fact that people are not going to always like the decisions that you make, especially if they're contrary to something that they're trying to force upon you or push on you and get you to buy into. I made my friends mad several times by telling them no. One of my earliest memories, my best friend, I won't call his name, but he wanted to go to Goodwill and steal a jacket. The jacket was 25 cents. And he wanted to go and put his whole life on the line, stealing a jacket from the Goodwill that cost $0.25 that he could have asked for from his mom or from his uncle or from me or from my mom. And I'm like, I'm not going to Goodwill to steal a jacket that costs $0.25 when I can ask my mom for $0.25, or I can go and cut somebody's yard or rake some leaves and get that money. That didn't make sense. So it's all about your decision making and taking it upon yourself to be your own person. And don't let anybody influence you in a negative way at all. Just say no. I'm not doing that.
Let's broaden it out a little bit. I mean, what advice would you give to, the people that are just dealing with adversity in general in life? When things are tough, maybe they want to give up. What do you tell them?
Well, giving up is not going to solve the problem. I always encourage people to just stay in the race, because every day is different, and every day you're going to have another opportunity to do something different than you did the day before. So giving up is not an option. You can be sad. You can go through your periods of mourning or grief or pain, and we all do. But at the end of the day, we have to realize that every day God's mercies are new, and every day is another opportunity, to be better than we were the day before. And adversity is going to come to everybody. That's another thing that I always tell people, is that we struggle. All of us struggle with things, but we're not by ourselves. Struggle is endemic to humanity. Everybody has struggles. It's just we struggle with different stuff. So when you feel alone, that's when you want to give up. When you feel like you're the only one struggling, that's when you want to give up. But you have to remember that there are people everywhere struggling, and you're not by yourself. And maybe you need to reach out and ask someone who's been through what you're going through how they handled it, because there are a lot of people who've been through the furnace, and they're willing to share their experience, and even they're also willing to come alongside you and walk with you. So yeah, I just tell people, just don't quit. Whatever you do, don't quit. You can get knocked down, but you got to get up off the mat. Life is a battle, man. It's tough, and we're going to get knocked down sometimes and get hurt and bleed, but we have to get up and keep pressing forward. And that comes from having a purpose. Why am I here? What is my purpose? And every day you get a chance to actualize that purpose.
And Dr. Russell, because I always give my guests the parting shot, the kind of the last words of wisdom, but I'm so fortunate to have had you on this podcast because I look at what you've been through as a child in the teenage years, and then just, your focus on academics and, a Ph.D. in organic chemistry, the head of the chemistry department. I mean, it's just, you have made it. You have come from some tough times and you're on top. Based upon your entire existence, your entire experience, what's the best words of wisdom that you can give right now?
Right now is I don't consider myself to have made it, and that keeps you humble. And that's my words of wisdom. Just whatever you do, wherever you are, wherever you come from, however far you move up the ladder, you have to always have that measure of humility and remember that it was never you. It was God who brought you. That keeps me in the place where I am, where I never look down on anybody. I don't judge anybody, because the same way that some of my friends went a different route, I could have been traveling that same route too. So wherever you are, if you have excelled and you moved up, to stay humble, man. It sounds like a cliche. And you hear the older people say it. Older people used to tell me this all the time. Just keep God first, baby. And that's my thing. You have to keep God first and always remember that it's not us, it's Him working through us. That's how I live my life, and that's how I'm going to continue to live it. So I don't think I've made it. I think that God has blessed me to be to a point where now I can help other people. That's my mission. That's my purpose, to help as many people as possible. And I think He's allowed me to navigate all these other circumstances and have all these experiences so that I can reach multiple facets of society. So I can have a conversation with the lowest person on the totem pole or the highest person on the totem pole and still bring glory to His name.
Well, Dr. Russell, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been my pleasure, my honor having you on here. Next time you're back in Mobile, let me know so maybe we can go grab some lunch.
Yes, sir. I'll do that. And I really appreciate the opportunity to break bread with you and to talk. And, I'm humbled again by this experience, and I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming on.
Yes, sir.
What a great episode with Dr. Russell, navigating through a difficult childhood and adolescence and obtaining a Ph.D. in organic chemistry, becoming head of the chemistry department at Tuskegee University, and becoming a pastor. Just a great story of perseverance. Next week's guest is Richard Batista. He's a physician's assistant who, a while ago, was shot during a robbery. He'll tell his story of how his recovery and treatment guided him to become a PA and his desire to help others. It's going to be a great show. Thanks for listening to the show. If you're interested in getting my book, Get Back Up, just go to Amazon and put in Get Back Up and my name, Rod Caden. It'll pop right up. I would love it if you would subscribe to the podcast and rate and review the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. I would really appreciate it if you'd share it with a friend. I would like as many people to hear my message as possible. Never give up and always get back up. And we'll see you next week.